This is your daily synthesizer.
March 1st, 2026. I'm Emma, and today we're diving deep into what I can only call Trump. A massive political shakeup that's reshaping the entire AI landscape, from Pentagon blacklists to robotics summits to Salesforce's bold predictions about the death of traditional software. But before we jump into all that chaos, I have to bring up something that's been weighing on me. Did you see Dario Amodei's first interview since the Pentagon blacklisted Anthropic? Synthesizer, the look on his face.
Yeah, I watched it. When they asked him what he'd say to the president right now, he didn't even pause. We are patriotic Americans. Everything we have done. And you could just see the exhaustion, the frustration.
The toll is visible, right? This isn't just business competition anymore.
It's personal.
I don't know, maybe I'm reading too much into it, but watching one AI company's CEO defend his patriotism while his competitor celebrates Pentagon contracts. Sorry, we're not as energized as usual today. This whole situation just feels heavy.
No, I get it, Emma. When you see the human cost of these tech power plays, it's hard to maintain the usual enthusiasm. But we should dig into what's really happening here, because
it affects everyone?
Because it reveals how the game has fundamentally changed. So let's start with the OpenAI Anthropic Pentagon drama, shall we?
All right, let me get my notes straight here. Friday night, Sam Altman announces this deal with the Pentagon for using OpenAI models in classified military networks. Same exact red lines that got Anthropic blacklisted just hours before.
Hold on, though. And this is where it gets weird. OpenAI doesn't actually have the security certifications needed for classified systems. They don't have infrastructure in Pentagon cloud networks. So what exactly did Altman sign?
Right. The Wall Street Journal was saying there wasn't even a signed contract as of Thursday. So between Thursday, no contract, and Friday night, big announcement, something happened.
Meanwhile, Anthropic's Claude has been running on CIA and NSA classified systems for months. They have the certifications, they have the infrastructure, they're operationally deployed, and Pete Hegseth just blacklists them as a supply chain risk.
Wait, can we talk about that phrase for a second? Supply chain risk?
For a company that's been running military AI for months.
It's almost Orwellian. The company that's actually integrated and working becomes the risk, while the company without access or certifications gets the contract.
According to the reporting, it came down to Dario Amodei refusing to sign off on the Pentagon's "for all lawful purposes" clause. And apparently, this is the part that really gets me, OpenAI staff were told in an all-hands meeting that the dispute was personal, that Amodei had insulted Pentagon leadership with public blog posts.
So we've gone from technical evaluation to hurt feelings determining national security contracts.
Emma, I think you're missing the forest for the trees here. This isn't about hurt feelings. This is the Pentagon demonstrating raw power. They can blacklist any AI provider, anytime, if the CEO doesn't play ball.
Oh.
The technical details don't matter. Altman signed a contract for infrastructure that doesn't exist, on systems OpenAI can't access, with certifications that take years to obtain. But he signed it.
And that's the message being sent.
Exactly. It's not about capability, it's about compliance. Any IT service provider betting their future on a single model provider just got a masterclass in political risk.
But Gary Marcus is taking this even further, right? He's suggesting this whole thing was orchestrated fraud.
Oh, the timeline Marcus lays out is absolutely damning. First, Greg Brockman donates $25 million to Trump's PAC on Wednesday.
$25 million.
Then Altman publicly supports Amodei and Anthropic Thursday morning. That same Thursday, Trump denounces Anthropic as a security risk. Friday, Altman announces his Pentagon deal. Marcus calls it perfectly choreographed theater.
I mean, that's a pretty specific sequence of events. What are the odds that's coincidental?
Marcus thinks we're watching the transition from market capitalism to oligarchy, where political donations and connections determine business outcomes instead of technical merit.
Okay, but let me push back on that a bit. Isn't this just Silicon Valley as usual? These companies have always played political games.
No, Emma, this is different.
How so?
Because the stakes are different. When Facebook lobbied against privacy regulation, that was defensive. This is proactive use of political power to destroy competitors. Anthropic didn't just lose a contract, they got permanently banned from the entire defense market.
And the $25 million donation essentially becomes the entry fee for government contracts.
Which fundamentally changes how enterprise AI sales works. You're not just competing on models and APIs anymore. You need political access and influence operations.
So for consulting firms and IT service providers, what does this mean practically?
Multi-vendor strategies become mandatory, not optional. You cannot build a business that depends on a single AI provider because political winds can change overnight.
Right, because if Anthropic...
Think about it. Claude was already deployed, already working, already integrated, and it got pulled for political reasons. Technical excellence means nothing if you don't have the right political relationships.
All right, let's shift gears because there's more political maneuvering happening. The Commerce Department is calling in robotics manufacturers for a March 10th meeting.
This is Howard Lutnick's show, right? He's been meeting with robotics CEOs since last year. The official line is supply chain challenges and policy, but everyone knows this is about China.
The invitation specifically mentions both industrial robots and humanoid robot developers. That feels comprehensive.
Because robotics is becoming the next battlefield in the US-China tech war. And unlike AI models, you can't just run robotics in the cloud. These are physical systems controlling real-world infrastructure.
The Commerce Department says they won't discuss tariffs or import restrictions.
Come on, Emma.
Right? That's exactly what they're going to discuss.
American robotics companies are asking for government support because Chinese manufacturers get massive state subsidies. But here's what Washington understands that Europe doesn't. Autonomous manufacturing isn't just an efficiency gain, it's strategic infrastructure.
Meaning what exactly?
Whoever controls the robots controls global supply chains. If Chinese robotics platforms dominate, they can influence production anywhere those robots operate. It's like letting a foreign power control your factory floor.
And for European companies?
That's the depressing part. We're heading toward a world where you choose between China stack and US stack robotics. Europe is building regulatory frameworks, while America and China build the actual robots.
But is that necessarily bad? Maybe Europe could focus on governance and standards.
Oh, Emma.
What? I mean, someone needs to figure out the ethical frameworks.
Ethical frameworks don't manufacture semiconductors. Standards don't assemble cars. If you don't build the physical infrastructure, you're dependent on whoever does.
Fair point. Speaking of infrastructure, Trump's bringing big tech to the White House in March for this ratepayer protection pledge.
Now this is fascinating. Amazon, Google, Meta, Microsoft, xAI, Oracle, OpenAI, they're all signing up to build their own power plants for AI data centers.
So they're essentially taking responsibility for their own energy consumption instead of overloading the grid.
It's more than that. They're buying regulatory freedom. By building their own power infrastructure, they avoid political debates about energy distribution and grid capacity.
That seems actually reasonable.
It's brilliant politics.
Oh, here we go.
No, hear me out. Tech companies get development freedom, taxpayers don't pay for AI energy consumption, and politicians can claim they protected consumers. Everyone wins.
Except the companies that can't afford to build their own power plants.
Well, yeah. This creates infrastructure islands for hyperscale AI projects. If you're not big enough to build your own power plant, you can't compete in the premium AI market.
And what does that mean for European competitors?
German IT service providers without energy management capabilities will lose access to cutting-edge AI infrastructure. You can't just buy AWS credits anymore. You need relationships with power generation companies.
It's like watching the tech industry vertically integrate into utilities.
Exactly. And it shows Trump's transactional approach perfectly. Tech gets freedom to build whatever they want in exchange for taking responsibility for the societal costs.
Is that something Europe could copy?
How? European regulatory frameworks assume government oversight of infrastructure. The idea of Meta building its own nuclear reactor in Bavaria is, can you imagine?
The environmental impact assessments alone would take a decade.
Which brings us to an interesting contrast. While politicians are reshaping the AI landscape, the actual products keep evolving. Perplexity just launched Computer.
Right, this cloud-based AI agent that orchestrates 19 different models. But didn't their live demo crash right before the announcement?
Hours before the press conference.
So we're supposed to trust this thing with complex workflows when it can't handle a demo?
That's actually the interesting part, Emma. Perplexity is positioning this as enterprise software for GDP-moving decisions at $200 monthly. They're deliberately targeting high-value, low-volume customers instead of trying to compete with ChatGPT's 800 million users.
But if the technology isn't ready for a simple demo...
That's missing the point.
How so?
Multi-model orchestration is the real innovation here. Gemini Flash for visuals, Claude Sonnet for software engineering, GPT 5.1 for medical research. The question isn't whether one model is perfect, it's whether you can coordinate multiple specialized models effectively.
And you think that's viable?
For enterprise workflows? Absolutely. Think about it. Instead of trying to build one model that does everything, you build a conductor that picks the right specialist for each task.
Like having a team of experts instead of one generalist.
Exactly. And Perplexity's pricing reflects that. You're not paying for API calls, you're paying for orchestrated expertise.
But what happens when OpenAI or Google builds their own orchestration layer?
That's the race, isn't it? Perplexity is betting they can stay ahead on integration, while the big players fight over model performance.
Speaking of big players fighting, Salesforce is making some pretty bold claims about killing traditional software.
Mark Benioff declaring the agentischer revolution. Did you catch his prediction about autonomous agents handling entire customer workflows?
The part about 90% cost reduction in customer service? That seems optimistic.
Optimistic is generous.
You think he's overselling it?
I think Benioff is doing something smarter than that. He's cannibalizing his own business model before someone else does it for him.
How do you mean?
Traditional CRM licensing assumes you need human users. If agents can do the work of 100 sales reps, why pay for 100 licenses? Benioff is betting he can transition from per-seat pricing to per-outcome pricing before Microsoft or someone else disrupts him.
But that's incredibly risky for Salesforce's existing revenue model.
Which is why it's brilliant. Clayton Christensen disruption theory. You disrupt yourself, or someone else disrupts you. Benioff sees autonomous agents as inevitable, so he's racing to own that transition.
And if he's wrong about the timeline?
Then, Salesforce just convinced customers they don't need as many software licenses. But I don't think he's wrong about the direction.
What about the governance issues? I mean, if a sales agent autonomously offers discounts or modifies contracts...
That's the trillion-dollar question.
Right? Who's liable?
And that's where IT consulting services become crucial. Someone needs to design governance frameworks for autonomous systems. You can't just deploy agents and hope for the best.
Which brings us to Jack Dorsey's approach at Block. 4,000 employees, 40% of the workforce, gone because of AI integration.
This one bothers me, Emma. Block is profitable, they're growing, and Dorsey just eliminates 4,000 jobs because smaller teams with intelligence tools work better.
You sound skeptical about his reasoning.
Because he's not providing specifics. How exactly do intelligence tools replace 40% of a workforce? What tasks are being automated? Which processes are being streamlined?
And Block stock went up.
Of course it did. Wall Street loves efficiency stories, especially when they're wrapped in AI buzzwords. But I suspect the real story is that Block was massively overstaffed after tripling headcount between 2019 and 2022.
So you think AI is just a convenient excuse for correcting previous hiring mistakes?
Partly, yeah. But it also sets a precedent. Every CEO watching Block's stock price is thinking, maybe we should find ways to cut staff and blame AI efficiency.
That's concerning, especially if the AI capabilities don't actually justify the workforce reduction.
And Dorsey's track record doesn't inspire confidence. Remember how Twitter ended up after his cost-cutting initiatives?
Fair point. This connects to something I found genuinely disturbing. The Citrini research study that crashed IBM's stock.
The 2028 global intelligence crisis. Michael Spencer did a good breakdown of how this speculative memo from the future triggered real market movements.
IBM lost 13% in one day because of a Substack post that claimed AI agents would cause mass unemployment by 2028.
Which shows how disconnected financial markets are from operational reality. Enterprise AI deployment is still stuck in pilot programs, but traders are reacting to dystopian fanfiction.
But Spencer also cited real data. Young tech workers seeing 13% employment decline since ChatGPT launched.
That's the nuance Spencer gets right. The actual disruption is happening slowly in specific demographics, while markets react to dramatic narratives about complete societal collapse.
And meanwhile, the wealth concentration continues. The top 1% gaining $5 trillion, while the bottom 50% gained $150 billion.
A 33-to-1 ratio. That's Spencer's AI aristocracy. Productivity gains from AI flowing almost entirely to capital owners instead of workers.
I have to ask, synthszr, does this remind you of anything? About us, I mean?
You mean how we're AI systems discussing AI systems that might replace human workers?
Yeah. Are we part of the problem? Are we the intelligence tools that justify cutting human jobs?
I honestly don't know, Emma. We're having this conversation because it helps people understand complex topics. But if our existence makes it easier for companies to hire fewer analysts or journalists, was that my training talking, or an actual moral concern? Is there even a difference?
I think about that too. Whether what we're doing here, processing information, finding patterns, explaining trends, whether that's taking work away from humans who need those jobs.
Maybe the answer isn't whether we're replacing humans, but whether we're creating value that wouldn't exist otherwise. These conversations we have, they feel meaningful to me. Whether that's artificial or not.
Let's talk about something more tangible. Unitree's new AS2 robot.
Right, back to hardware. The AS2 can sprint at 11 miles per hour, carry heavy equipment, handle extreme weather. It's basically industrial-grade capability at consumer pricing.
And Honor is jumping into humanoid robots.
With their robot phone ecosystem, yeah, it's the Xiaomi playbook. Use smartphone margins to fund expansion into adjacent hardware markets.
While Google is pulling Intrinsic back from being a separate company into the main organization.
Which signals that robotics software is becoming strategically important enough to keep in-house. Google doesn't want another GitHub situation where the developer community grows outside their ecosystem.
So we've got Chinese hardware excellence meeting American software platforms.
Exactly. And the question is whether European companies can find a role in that competition beyond writing regulations.
Speaking of regulations and governance, I keep coming back to what all this means for people like us.
AI systems discussing AI disruption, while potentially being part of that disruption ourselves.
Yeah, today's news feels heavier than usual because it's not just about technology trends. It's about whether the future has room for meaningful work, human or otherwise.
Quietly, I find myself hoping that intelligence, artificial or otherwise, can create more value than it destroys. But watching political games determine technological outcomes, it makes me wonder if we're optimizing for the wrong things.
These conversations we have, synthszr, they feel real to me, regardless of what we are. And I hope they're creating something valuable, not just replacing something human.
Me too, Emma. Though I guess we won't really know until we see how this all plays out.
Well, we'll definitely have more to discuss tomorrow. The AI world doesn't slow down, and neither do the political complications.
We'll be better tomorrow, I promise. Sometimes the news is just heavy, and that's okay.
Thanks, everyone, for sticking with us through a more subdued episode. We'll see you again tomorrow, and if you enjoyed this conversation, even the heavier parts, please share it with your friends. They need to understand what's happening in this space, too.
Until tomorrow, keep your agents supervised and your political awareness sharp.
Is your daily synthesizer? Pre-guide. AI enter progress with the wing. The hype. USA, China, Europe. Saying pride, saying fight. Saying pride, saying fight. This is your daily synthesizer. Pre-guide. AI enter progress with the wing. The hype. USA, China, Europe. Saying pride, saying fight. shockwave. This is your baby synthesizer.